Warning, the contents of this episode contains real talk about suicide. Viewer discretion is advised.
The views expressed in this episode are the opinions of the cast members and do not represent the views of the United States Navy or the United States government. Shit, mate. I was handing out laminated suicide cards today, or suicide prevention cards today.
Oh, was that the badges that they were talking about?
Yeah.
Can I get one of those tomorrow?
Yeah.
I keep forgetting to ask my chief of staff. Do you have any more of those?
Your SEL has more.
Okay, my mission SEL?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask him tomorrow.
But on that card, it says, it's an advice card, right? If you see the following signs, someone is depressed, someone is talking about this, someone is doing this, someone is doing that, then those are the telltale signs that, ask them straight up. Hey, do you feel like hurting yourself? Do you feel like killing yourself? And that's it, right? Well, that's not it. That's not how it is. That's not how it is for a lot of people.
There's never any signs.
A lot of people, we paint images of ourselves, man. We paint this perception of ourselves as a product of our egos, and it can be very difficult to penetrate. And
to our last night ashore, drink to the foam. Good afternoon, everybody. I am CTT1 Battaglia, and I'm joined today by Chief Peavy. Today's episode is called Out of the Woods. Now, I was going to originally call this Into the Woods, but we want to get people out of the woods, so hence the new name of this episode. So, majority of the, I believe that's a government, is this a DOD month for it, Chief? Is it DOD wide, or is this just National Suicide Prevention Month? How does that work?
It's got to be at least DOD.
Okay.
It's got to be at least DOD.
I'm going to treat it this like it's national, just because it's, so we got a lot going on. We got COVID going on. People are in quarantine. They can't leave their houses. They're basically losing their ability to connect with others, and majority of us don't know how to connect with others or are afraid to. So this episode is for you, sailors, Marines, soldiers, airmen, civilians. You are listening to this and you feel like you are down in the dumps. Even if you don't feel like you're down in the dumps, reach out to somebody. Message somebody on Facebook. Email somebody. Email us. Email the What the Navy alias, and somebody will talk to you. And if you are feeling any type of way that is not you, like you're going down into the woods, as I like to call it, you can easily get lost in the woods. I got lost in the woods a lot when I was a kid. Get lost in the woods as an adult. Sometimes you need a guide to get back. And if you need a guide, if you are lost, reach out. We'll get you out of there. So, Chief,
I can't say for sure, right? Because I don't know all 7-8 billion people in the world. But
whoever listens to this, I'm okay with contacting me.
I can't imagine there's one single person who's never been lost in the woods,
Exactly. You've dealt with people that have had suicidal thoughts before, right?
Not too many. I'm not even gonna lie to you. As a CDO at Corey Station, or like duty section leader at Corey Station, yes. But that was a quick, call to 911, and I can't say that any of my sailors have, that I know about, right?
Okay.
So, but I do have a guy that I was professionally close to, ITC Brian Hamill, who was successful in committing suicide. And that was really it really sucked because there was no one had any idea like he was the number one chief. Very outspoken. He was a guy's guy, right? He was a sailor. And you went to him when you needed an answer. And so, for him to pass that way, it was devastating on a lot of people. And I think it was more so because, we were at a training command, and I think it was more so devastating. Not that people personally knew him, but that people like professionally painted this, image of him. And there was no way that anything could be wrong with him. Like I said, he was a sailor, and for me, it really reminded me that like no one is invincible, and death is the great equalizer between us all. And because that if there was anyone at Corey Station at the time who was invincible, it was that guy. So yeah, that was pretty devastating. Like I said, I knew him professionally. I didn't know him personally. Obviously, we weren't fraternizing and stuff like that.
Right.
I worked close with him because I was one of his assistant semios. But yeah, number one chief. So that was my last interaction with suicide or suicidal ideations, and it really threw a wrench in the system. His image was not one that had anything to do with suicidal ideations, attempts.
He hit it well.
In fact, yeah, he did it well. But in fact, he would have been the one you went to when you had suicidal ideations. So like I said, I think that's what really shook us up the most. And I, still think about it. It was a few years ago. So I believe he drove home on a weekend. He's originally from Massachusetts, and there was a bridge notorious for people who were going to kill themselves. And his car was close by, and he wasn't around. And so put two and two together, he had jumped. And I believe a few days or a few weeks later, they found his remains,
So let's talk about my first, I would say, encounter with sailors taking their own lives. And this is on my first ship, GM2 Sam Nicknam. He was, I'll be honest, he was a complete asshole to me sometimes. But that's because he wanted me to get better at what I needed to do for anti-terrorism force protection. That man taught me how to shoot a weapon effectively and always on target at night. I could bullseye the target at night with the ship rocking. So that man knew his stuff, and I enjoyed learning from him despite his personality quirks. So let's go probably 2 years after we got back from deployment. If anybody from that ship wants to fact check me, they can. I don't really remember all of the details because I was still a brand new sailor. So it was middle of November, maybe December, And we've come to find that GM2 Nick Nam has taken his own life with his Command 1911. I didn't see any signs. I also didn't really know what to look for. But that was the first interaction. Let's go a couple years after that. OS2 Nick Higginbotham. Now, me and him did know each other very well. We were constantly messing with one another. He sat right next to me at Tick. We were pretty close. And after I transferred, I found out he took his own life on Christmas Eve. And I keep wondering, what sign did I miss? How did I miss that he was depressed and going to take his own life? And the fact of the matter is, those that intend to do it are pretty good at hiding their signs. Because we know the signs because we get the training every year. So we're essentially training those that need help how to hide their signs so they won't be stopped. Because that's the number one thing that someone that wants to commit suicide is thinking is, how do I end this pain? And it's... They got to know that there's another way. They got to know there's another day. It'll get better. Sometimes you got to hit rock bottom to get back to the top. I compare that to, for our gamer audience, in Assassin's Creed when Altair loses his rank and goes all the way back down to basic and has to work his way back up. That's how I think of it. You got to work your way back up. You got to work your way out of that hole. You got to come out of that woods. So, I say all that, and most of our listeners will probably be like, well, what does he know? I could tell you from experience, I have been lost in that woods, and I have needed help coming back several times. And I'm sure I will have that problem for the rest of my life. And I'm okay with that because I know I can fight and get out of it. So let's go back to 2013. That's the most recent, one of the most recent ones. My godfather, I mentioned him, I think I mentioned him in episode 2 or 3, What Inspires Us. My uncle, he was my godfather. Man was... He taught me kind of how to do math. He kind of gave up because I was kind of a knucklehead back then. Yeah. Couldn't draw a straight line on a ruler. But... So, when I was 14, I had a issue. And it took... My uncle pulled me aside. And he had Crohn's disease. He told me that when he was 13 years old, he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. He had I want to say over 200 surgeries, but as he was growing up, he's constantly had to remind himself to keep fighting, to keep going. And my uncle told me that if he can do it, I can do it. So, sometimes it takes somebody telling you that you can get out of it. You can fight those ideations to keep you out of the hole, keep you out of those woods. So that was in 2003, 2004 maybe, around then. That was a long time ago. Let's go back to 2013. My uncle dies. And people were like, I displayed the signs because I'm not very good at hiding emotions. So they asked me if I needed help. Sometimes the hardest thing you gotta do is say, yes, I need help. So talk to a counselor. Those of us that have a security clearance, if you ask for help, you will not be punished. You ask for help, I'm going to say it again. If you ask for help, there will be nothing held against you. So I know there are leaders that go get help. I had a senior chief that was getting help. I'm sure there are chiefs at our command, chiefs, officers, civilians that get help because the military is hard. I want to reiterate to those of us that are lost in the woods, reach out to somebody. Even if you think you're not lost in the woods and you got something going on in your life, talk to somebody. If you're stressed out at work, hell, it doesn't even have to be depression. It could be stress. Chief's constantly on my butt for something I need to do. Talk to Chief. Hey, Chief, this is stressing me out. Can you help me make this easier? It's easy. Is it? I say it's easy, but is it really? No, because most of us are driven by ego and pride. I know I am. And I had several people tell me, just say something. And it'll make it easy. You just got to say something. Chief, did I say anything that was off there? Or am I pretty well on the money?
Nah, you were on point, man. As you were talking, I was thinking about comms check and Petty Officer Davis, who mentioned leaders' lack of being able to see signs. And some people have the gift, some people don't. But just thinking about it, man, oh man, is it more important now than any other time in my career. I can't think of anything that's comparable to COVID-19, to restriction of movement, to not being able to do the things that would otherwise take your mind out of your mind, out of inwardly focusing or dwelling on yourself. Man, this is that moment. So just to reiterate, what Petty Officer Davis and Master Chief Crandall was selling to us, look for those signs, be conscious of those signs. And to the folks who need those signs identified, there's a couple studies that say, communication is 90% or more nonverbal, that it's 10% or less verbal. So, but we go back to those obviously verbal cues, right? And not always is that 90%, like I just discussed, not always is that going to be the identifier. Big deal if you communicate. As Petty Officer Battaglia mentioned, don't worry about repercussion. Don't worry about any of that stuff. For leadership, our mission is sailors always. There's really no reason for us to be here except for taking care of sailors who are taking care of the bulk of the mission. And you sailors, you people, you humans, just like me, not much different than me, not much different than any other person wearing khakis, wearing officer rank insignia. We're all people. There's not much different. There's not much that makes us different. Some of us have been in for a little longer. Some of us have been able to have had the opportunity to face challenges and issues and overcome. None of that is done completely solely. None of that is done completely solely. There's always going to be, whether it's someone dealing with an issue that they reflect on their past of how someone else dealt with it, or whether it's someone dealing with an issue where they voice it to a leader or to a peer or to a subordinate, anybody. We're not that different. And it is in our nature to compare ourselves to each other. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that may have something to do with the presence of suicidal ideations. Is that comparison? You're in a rut, this person isn't, or there's something going on with you that is unique to you that no one else has gone through. So your best decision is to just take your life. But it's so important to know that is not the case. That's not how this works. And there are some of us, just like you and I, there's some of us who will paint that picture, that image that we're doing fine and dandy, right? Social media doesn't help. Facebook doesn't help. Instagram, Twitter, I don't have those things, but I'm sure it doesn't help. But none of that is, well, I don't believe any of that is worth taking your own life. So if you need help, please get help.
Absolutely. Like Chief said, none of us are in this alone. I was so yes, the other day I was talking to one of our airmen in my mission, and he said something to me, something that I overheard, and I was like, I think I need to say something. I was like, come on, let's talk. And he's like, nah, I don't need to talk. I don't need to talk. And one of the other airmen was like, what a way to be disrespectful to CTT1. I was like, no, that's not disrespectful. He doesn't want to talk about it. He's still going to talk about it. So me and him went over and talked about it. And he was his big issue with, while in the military, trying to talk about issues if he has any. He said he didn't, but they've been lying. His issue is he is worried he is not going to be understood. And I feel like that's a problem with a lot of people. I know it's especially a problem with me. I feel 90% of the time I have to reiterate myself like 16 times. Chief can attest to it. I need to reverbalize some things a lot because I speak Battaglia. I don't speak English most of the time. And sometimes Chief Peavy speaks Chief Peavy, and I'm like, can you put that in stupid person terms for me, please? So, we all want to be understood. So sometimes you just gotta make somebody understand you. If you gotta draw it for them, write it out, smacking them upside the head with it, make yourself understood. That's kind of what I told him. Is sometimes you gotta make people feel like you gotta help people understand you. You gotta bring a codex with it so they can understand what the hell you're saying to them. So, heck, this even goes with kids. Kids battle depression, suicidal ideation, because they feel they can't tell their parents about their problems. I'm willing to bet 90% of parents have probably gone through something similar and are able to help you. So, if you're a kid listening to this, which I don't know any that are, ask your parent about something. If you have an issue at school, by all means, ask your parents. Hell, ask your teacher. Your teacher will reach out to you. So, Chief, I mentioned that because I know you have a daughter. I don't know if she's in school, right, or just daycare?
She's in school daycare.
School daycare. Preschool? Is that preschool?
I went to an orientation last week, me and my wife, to transition her from a pre-toddler classroom to a toddler classroom.
That's a thing?
That was an orientation. She's got a backpack. I asked him, I said, what do we put in the backpack? They all laughed. Like nothing, stupid. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why would she have a backpack then?
The nap on her.
They're like, oh, you could put a teddy bear or something in there. But yeah, needless to say, and I'm sure most parents will attest to, yeah, that'll be one of my main worries, my main concerns when she gets older is her not being able to express herself to me. And I want to share something that has helped me for a while, and maybe controversial, maybe not.
This show's about controversy, so bring it.
Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. What I mean by be vulnerable goes back to the humility complex. If you don't know, you don't know. Ask somebody. If you don't know, if you can't explain these feelings that you have, talk to somebody about it. But be vulnerable, share your emotions. No one is a robot. No sailor is a robot. No military service member is a freaking robot. We all have issues. We all have stuff going on. We all have personal stuff going on. We all have professional stuff going on. Some deal with it in different ways than others, but there are no exceptions. There are no exceptions. The guy that wakes up or the gal that wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning to do a Navy SEAL PT and is the number one sailor and this and that has issues going on. And you don't have to overcome those issues by yourself.
Absolutely not.
Because there are people who have done it and they've succeeded. And they've succeeded through the help of others. And I would argue that they're still around to help others. And I can't stress it enough. If you think you can never come to me about something because I'm all high and mighty and I wear khakis and I'm this superhuman, man, that's ridiculous, man. That's ridiculous, right? And I'm confident that's a thing with junior sailors because it was a thing with me. You know, this person who is considered a leader or wears the title and where's the anchor or, you know, where's the officer rank, considered a leader, but I'm not even on the same level. I think that's how junior sailors think. But that's so not the case. That's so not the case. We are all around to be to help, to have the opportunity to help. And the vast majority of us know that. We ain't much different, man. We ain't much. What is it? What are we? 99. What are human beings? You compare let's say an African American woman to a Caucasian man. What's the biological difference? The anatomical difference between them, like 0.1% or something like that. I think the difference is our skin color and our hair texture,
genitalia,
and the face the hair that grows on our face. But we're all the same.
We all bleed red.
Same. So
we all bleed red. Unless somebody's bleeding green, then I want to meet you because I'm pretty sure you're an alien and I have some questions.
Pretty much, man. But be vulnerable. And again, you are more like your leader who has had those thoughts in the past, for sure. And is probably where they are right now because they sought help.
In closing, ladies and gentlemen, if you feel like you are about to get lost in the woods, are lost in the woods, feel like you need to come out of the woods, what have you, you're feeling off, talk to somebody. It doesn't matter if it's a psychologist, a chaplain. It could be the person sitting right next to you.
I guess I wonder. So we have suicide prevention training, right? We have the annual general military training. We have live trainings, things like that, and then we also have this, from what I understand, and I haven't had the opportunity to go through it yet, an assist program.
I've done that class,
which is a suicide, basically a suicide intervener. And from what I understand, they go through this awesome role-playing demonstration course that puts themselves in really uncomfortable positions. And that's what I believe is the best way you can prepare for anything, especially suicide prevention. So we have those types of trainings, but what about a training? What about a session, an event that changes people's minds about suicide? You know what I mean? You know, right. You say we're in a room with 10 people, and out of those 10 people, 2 of those people are currently having suicidal ideations. You know, how do we get to the point where by the time we're done with that event, when we all walk out of that room, 0 people are having suicidal ideations. 0 people don't want to have suicidal ideations in the future. You know, how do we get to the core of that? Is what probably exists elsewhere, but the general military training, I think it's a lot more focused on, bystander intervention type stuff.
Right.
But thank you for watching this week's episode. Please give us a like and subscribe and hit the notification button so you can catch all our episodes as they're uploaded or when we do it live.
If you would like to be a part of the show and have a topic that you would like covered, please email us at whatthenavy@gmail.com or leave us a comment below. Thank you for watching this episode of What the Navy.